I recently played through and beat 13 Spider-Man games. That was all of the Spider-Man games from about 2002 until this year. It's over 20 years worth of Spider-Man games, and I did it over the course of a week where I did not stop. I picked up a Spider-Man game, and from the first Spider-Man game in 2002 for the PlayStation 2, I know that I didn't play the PlayStation 1 Spider-Man games, but that's because I typically don't play PlayStation 1 games, except for like Silent Hill or Resident Evil. It's just, they're not really my thing. Yeah. Anyway, so from PS2 Spider-Man 1 onwards, I played them all chronologically, one after another, without stopping. Each one beaten in about a day each. I've played the majority of them, I would say, from when they released. Like, as a kid, I'd played Spider-Man 2 a lot, Ultimate Spider-Man a lot, Spider-Man 3 on the PlayStation 2 a lot, we'll get to that one. I played Amazing Spider-Man when that came out. I didn't play Shattered Memories, Web of Shadows, Edge of Time, Friend or Foe when they released, though. I didn't play Amazing Spider-Man 2 when that released either. And of course I played all the Sony Spider-Man games when they released. And in this video, I'm going to rank them all, talk about them, compare them, and give my thoughts on each one and which one was my favourite, ranking them from worst to best. So let's get it, shall we? 13 Spider-Man games. Let's see if we can get the good thumbnail angle in here. It's a bit dark at the minute because it's a bit cloudy out, but it is what it is. We're going to start this list off at the bottom of the pile. The absolute worst Spider-Man game in my eyes was Spider-Man 3 for the 360. And now, when I was playing through this, I also upload the clips that I filmed for YouTube over on TikTok, and each one goes up as its own individual thing. And the videos for the Spider-Man playthroughs have been doing pretty well, like 5 million views this week, for example. And the Spider-Man 3 videos, a lot of them did quite well because I was losing my temper, because a lot of the sections in the game were just god-awful. And a lot of people were like, I don't remember this. And the reason you don't remember it is because this game and the PlayStation 2 version of it are two entirely different games. I also had never played the 360 version until these retrospective playthroughs, because as a kid I played the PlayStation 2 version, and in retrospect, I really wished that in the last couple of weeks when I was playing through these, that I'd have chosen the PlayStation 2 version over the 360 version, because it would have been more fun for me, I do presume, because I actually have fond memories of that game, whereas this one, just time and time again, made me angry. The story, the combat, the swinging, the silly sections where you had to protect things, the fact that it doesn't tell you what to do, but it just bothered me to no end. Anyway, for our next game, the next worst one, we have The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I expected this one to top the list. I know I need to pull the stickers off, by the way. Apparently I haven't with these ones. I had a mass sticker removal session for literally 4 hours a few weeks ago, and I thought I got them all, but apparently not. But The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I've been told, is one of the worst Spider-Man games. To a lot of people, I think it is the worst Spider-Man game, but to me, it wasn't. The big problem with this game is that if you don't do side quests, if you don't do random crimes, you start getting robots and hunters and things like that being sent after you just during free roam. It treats you as a villain if you don't actively do heroic things. But I didn't encounter too much of that until towards the very end of the game, because of the fact that I played through it quite quickly. I think it took me about 4 hours. It's a quite short game, and obviously I just focused on the main story for these because I wanted to get through it and get to the good ones, because by the time I was at Amazing Spider-Man 2, after that it was starting the Spider-Man PS4, so I just really wanted to get through it. So I didn't see a lot of the bad stuff about it, but it did downgrade quite dramatically as far as I'm concerned from Amazing Spider-Man 1, because in Amazing Spider-Man 1 it felt fun to swing and to play and things like that, but in this one it just kind of didn't, and I don't understand how that happened, because there was a whole generation gap between Amazing Spider-Man 1 and Amazing Spider-Man 2. So yeah, if you were to work out the amount of hours per pound spent on these games, by the way, that would probably be quite a tragic number. Next up, we have, and this one might hurt some feelers because nostalgia is a problem. Oh, and we're reflecting in it. Hello. So, Spider-Man the movie. So this is Spider-Man 1. Now, this is the one where you straight up swing from clouds. There's no momentum. It is set distances. It's very primitive, but it was one of the first. It was the first Spider-Man game for the PlayStation 2, so you can't really blame it too much for what it is, and I don't blame it. It's just that when compared to the rest of the games coming up, it's the next worst. If we're being real here, from here on out in this video, we're only talking about pretty good games. From here on out, I don't think there is a bad Spider-Man game. The only bad Spider-Man games have been the two that we've talked about so far. So that was Spider-Man the movie. Next up, okay, this one might hurt some feelings being this low on the list as well, because the videos for this did really, really well. Like, I got a video on about 600,000 views where I started playing Friend or Foe, and it was a big nostalgia point for a lot of people. But I think when it comes to actual Spider-Man games, it's not a very good Spider-Man game. It is just a 2.5 3D-ish beat-em-up game. Very short, very child-friendly, very easy, very level-focused. It's not a bad game, and again, that's something people mistake, is that simple and easy doesn't make a bad game. We live in an era where if it's not a Souls-like and it isn't hard, people think bad. That's not what that means. It's what it was meant to be, you know? They didn't mean it to be the next 3D open-world massive game. It was just a filler game for kids, and it's fair enough. I had fun with it. It's just, compared to, again, the rest of the games on this list, it's just the next worst one. After that, we've got Amazing Spider-Man 1, which is a game I do genuinely decently enjoy. Like, it's a fun game. It's just a case of, compared to the games that are left on this list, it's the next worst. It is miles Morales better, miles better than Amazing Spider-Man 2 in literally every way. The combat, the swinging, the story, how cinematic it is, the suits, even the graphics, even though it was a 360 version I played versus the PlayStation 4 version that I played for Amazing Spider-Man 2 felt better. I don't know how they did it, but this was a pretty fun game, and I remember back when it came out I did 100% it because I enjoyed it. Next up, this is where we start possibly getting controversial, because again, all of these games are now technically pretty good games, and everybody's going to have their preferences. So we've got Spider-Man Edge of Time. This one did a lot of things that I don't tend to like in games. It's a lot of fights with robots. It's a lot of fights within grey laboratories. The entire game is in a lab, basically, and that is never just something I enjoy too much. It's not the most fun thing in the world for me. But the story itself, really enjoyed that. The way you switch between 2099 and current Parker, and how things that they do in the future or the past affect vice versa, and the plot twist halfway through. It was pretty fun. But again, of the remaining games, it's the next worst. Shattered Dimensions. So this one is one that a lot of people would probably say is up there with some of the best. But to me, I had fun with it. I did. I would say this one borders on a little bit longer than it should be. I would say this one took me longer than a lot of the Spider-Man games, because some of the levels were like, I think there was 14 levels, and some of them took half an hour because it just repeated the same thing over and over again. Sometimes, where, for example, especially Noir's missions, you'd walk into a room and it'd be like, there's 5 civilians, save the civilians, and that was rinse repeat over and over again. It didn't, until towards the end of the game, it didn't feel like we were really getting anywhere. But honestly, I would say to be this high up on the rankings of the Spider-Man games and it not being an open-world Spider-Man game, that is a pretty good ranking in and of itself. But next up, Spider-Man Miles Morales. Now, of the 3 Spider-Man games, so PS4, this one, and Spider-Man 2 PS5, I'd say this is the worst of the 3. And I'd say that, again, we are now pretty much, I think there's only about 5 games left to compare and rank. And at this point, we're talking about great games. All of these games are great games, but it is just a case of something's got to be worse than others. There's more puzzles in Miles Morales, and there's less variety in the sort of combat because of just Miles' powers and the lack of different kinds of webs compared to, say, what Peter had in PS4. And to be fair, I think even the webs in Spider-Man PS5, Spider-Man 2 PS5 were a bit of a downgrade over PS4, but we'll get to that. So after Miles Morales, as saying, we do have Spider-Man 2 for the PlayStation 5. I do prefer the PS4 Spider-Man to Spider-Man 2. Again, great game, but there's just a lot that I wish was in... There was a lot that was in PS4 that I wish was in Spider-Man 2. After that, we're going back to the nostalgia factors. This was one that I played a hell of a lot as a kid. I enjoyed the replay of it. It's 20 years old. It might even be like 22, and it still looks great because they chose stylistic, cartoon, trying to make it look like a comic versus it being, realistic. It's very similar to Spider-Man 2. In fact, PS5 Spider-Man 2 is a bit of a combination of this game and another one that we'll talk about soon. But Ultimate Spider-Man was brilliant. In fact, I'm on the lookout for the limited edition PS2 version of this because it's one of the prettiest cases I've ever seen. I saw that Retro Ghetto got one the other day and it inspired me, so now I'm on the hunt for that. Next up, we're now in the top 3, I do believe. So we got Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4. There's not too much that needs to be said about this. It's just one of the best Spider-Man games. The webs in this game were so much better than the Miles Morales game or the Spider-Man 2 PS5 game that I wish they somehow were able to bring them in. The impact webs and the web bombs and the concussive wave. There's just ways that you can use those that are so much fun that I'm sad that it wasn't possible in 2. And to me, that was a downgrade. Next up, Spider-Man 2 for the PlayStation 2, even though I played it on the GameCube. But still, it's pure nostalgia. It holds up pretty well. Obviously, the graphics are a bit lacking now because of how old it is. But it was just, I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was shorter than I remember it being, even though it forces you to do loads of side stuff to be able to actually progress. But it was great. The combat is brutal. It's more in depth than you'd think. The swinging is probably about as free as it ever got, kind of, until we get to the next one. And yeah, Spider-Man 2. Which means in first place, and my favourite Spider-Man game, and I didn't expect this because, again, I had never played this game before this retrospective, and I expected that Spider-Man 2 or Spider-Man PS4 would be at the top of this list, but I enjoyed Web of Shadows so much that I've thought about playing it while playing all of the others after it ever since. The combat, it's in-depth, it's fun, it's brutal. The swinging is, I think, the best in the series. The movement in this is the best in the series. It's definitely the fastest, or it can be. The world is the most expansive, because in this, the entire Marvel Universe exists. And I think that with Spider-Man 2 PS5, they took a lot from the story of this game for it. It is just a shame that should you guys wish to play it physically, this is now a £100 game, or at least it is at CEX. It's going to be pretty hard to get hold of today. But this, Web of Shadows, was definitely the most fun that I had during this retrospective. And now I start thinking about what's next. In terms of the actual Spider-Man playthrough videos, they're still being uploaded on TikTok until the 19th. I've worked that out, that I've got until the 19th's worth of videos, which means I'm getting way ahead of myself. This type of video where I talk about and rank each one of the games is something that I'm going to start doing at the end of all of my big franchises that I play through. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed those Spider-Man videos. They got decent views. The account grew a few hundred followers from it. Subscribers, whatever. Different word over here. Yeah, on to the next thing. And I shall see you guys later. If you enjoyed this video, do subscribe and like and all that sort of thing.